Again, I'm going to look up and down this list. Top teams in net rating since January 1st. Charlotte Hornets are number 1. Number 2 is San Antonio Spurs, a title contender. Number 3 is the Boston Celtics, a title contender. Number 4 is the Detroit Pistons, a title contender. Number 5 is the Oklahoma City Thunder, a title contender. Number 6 is the Cleveland Cavaliers, a title contender. Number 7 is Minnesota Timberwolves, a title contender. Number 8 is the New York Knicks, a title contender. You finally get to the Clippers. 125 points per 100 possessions when LaMelo Ball is on the court. Beating teams by 10.4 points per 100 possessions when LaMelo Ball is on the court. This is across the entire season. This is 3,000 possessions of basketball. So this team was already elite when LaMelo plays. He just plays around an average of 60% of the game. So figuring out that other 40% was the entire problem. Now, Coby White, what we just saw him do against Boston, if he is legit and is able to solve that 40% problem, if everything you're saying is true, if the top of the list going straight down from 2 to 8 are all title contenders, is this team an Eastern Conference contender and a title contender? This is Hot Hand Theory. This is a podcast where we talk about the NBA and break things down from an analytical perspective. I'm your co-host, XJ. As always, I'm joined by my brilliant co-host, Geoff. And Geoff, there's only one team we could possibly be talking about right now. There's a lot of teams doing some interesting stuff. You know, Atlanta Hawks are winning games and a lot of teams that we could be talking about and that we will talk about at some point in the future. But right now, in this moment, there is only one. It is the Charlotte Hornets. We are revisiting them. We are talking Hornets again. The last time we spoke about the Hornets, you know, they were looking good. They just beat the Oklahoma City Thunder. They were getting a little bit of momentum, but they weren't really getting talked about. They were just flying under the radar. They were just a low-key team. Nobody on the national stage was giving them any shine. Now they have burst their way on the scene since January 1st, the best team in the NBA, plus 12.2 per 100 net rating since January 1st. Just blew out the second best team in net rating since January 1st somehow. Knocked them all the way down to third place in this conversation. Best offense since January 1st, 121.6 points per 100 possessions. Fifth best defense since January 1st, 109.4 per 100 possessions. And this is a 30-game sample size. This is not a tiny sample. This is not a hot streak. This is domination by a team for an entire 2-month stretch. And it's incredible to watch. Where do you want to start with the Hornets, Geoff, for this iteration of our podcast talking about them?
I saw a comment very recently, and I forget who made it. Apologies to this person. Actually, maybe not apologies, because I don't mean to throw him under the bus, but it is going to come off like I'm throwing him under the bus. But they made it seem like Hornet stuff happens every season. Like what's happening in Charlotte. Like, oh, there's a team, you know, there's a young team that that's late bloomers in the season. Like we see this every year, you know, there's a late blooming team every year. This is completely unprecedented. And I just I couldn't stop thinking about that. Like this isn't a team that got off to a bad start and then just like figured out how to play basketball. This 29 game stretch where the Hornets are 21-8 is basically the first time that their team has all played together all season. They were battling injuries for the first, like this is who this team is. It's not like, oh yeah, they took some time to play together and then they were figuring it out. No. We have a large enough sample size of just these guys playing together that if they were healthy from the start of the season, we can just extrapolate this subset of games and assume that they would be near the top of the East. That is what we're seeing right now. And this is something that basically has never happened before. And you look around the Charlotte Hornets roster, you get that like in all sorts of places. Have we ever seen 3 guys under 25 years old, all drafted by the team? LaMelo Ball, Kon Knueppel, Brandon Miller. Actually, on the season, they've played over 500 minutes together, plus 16 per 100 possessions. On the season, when these 3 players play together. What can you even say? Like, we got J-Dub, Chet, and SGA? What I don't even have the numbers in front of me. Have they ever had a season that good with the 3 of them on the court together across a full season? I'd be very interested to look that up. But this is the Charlotte Hornets. Like, this is 3 guys under 25 years old on the same team, perfectly synergistic with one another. They just went into Boston, got 2 more offensive rebounds despite walloping them, despite shooting way better. Newsflash, when you're playing a team that's elite at offensive rebounds like Boston, and you're the one making all your shots and they're not making shots, they have more offensive rebound chances. You're not supposed to get more offensive rebounds than Boston when you're also shooting better than them. 2 more offensive rebounds, 11 fewer turnovers. Joe Mazzulla is going to win Coach of the Year because he basically figured out that the best way to be an elite team in Boston is to get more possessions than the other team. That is what Boston's doing. And Charlotte just said, oh, is that what you want to do? Well, we're going to do it better than you because we have elite shooting everywhere. And oh yeah, we look at any offensive rebounding category. When we don't make it, we have as good a chance of collecting our own miss as any team in the NBA. This is, again, I just keep coming back to this word. This is completely unprecedented because we've never seen a team like this coming off a couple seasons where they didn't even make the playoffs. No expectations. Yes, they had some fun young talent, start the season slow, but they're not healthy. And then the second they get healthy, they're just one of the best teams in the NBA. 2 months of basketball where they are arguably the best team in the NBA. Completely unprecedented. I know I didn't really take this conversation in any particular direction, but just, I would say that you're a lot of things, but one thing that you're a lot better than me, I would say you're the X's and O's guy. You can hone in on the micro. If there's one thing maybe I have on you, it is the macro, it is the historical. I cannot remember anything like this at all. This has to be the most exciting time to be a Charlotte Hornets fan in the history of their franchise. This is remarkable.
Yeah, I always appreciate you contextualizing things that way because you do have that context, that knowledge, that historical background and basis for your perspectives. And it definitely feels that way to me with me not having as deep a knowledge base as you. It definitely feels that way. I would be shocked to have seen this otherwise. I do have a direction I want to take this, and there's a couple of things I want to talk about. I want to talk about LaMelo Ball in specific because, we on Hot Hand Theory dropped a video essay recently that, has been gotten a lot of acclaim and people have spoken about how much they've maybe learned or there's been some insightful stuff about LaMelo Ball in particular. And so I want to talk about that. But before we talk about that, I want to continue to talk about this Hornets team, but I am going to take it in a particular direction. I'm going to kind of put you on the spot here. So you talked about how we've seen this team for 2 months. And if we were to extrapolate that out, because this is the only amount of time that the team has played together, we could kind of assess that this is who the team is. They'd probably be somewhere upwards towards the top of the Eastern Conference. I mentioned how they have been first in net rating, first in offense since January 1st. If we look down the chart of net rating since January 1st, because everybody's talking about the Hornets like, oh, it's such a great story. Oh, it's really cool. Oh, it's sweet. It's a nice story. Like, it could be a nice story, or it could be meaningful in terms of this season right away, where they wind up as we move forward. Because again, I'm going to look up and down this list. Top teams in net rating since January 1st. This is over a 2-month sample. Charlotte Hornets are number 1. Number 2 is San Antonio Spurs, a title contender. Number 3 is the Boston Celtics, a title contender. Number 4 is the Detroit Pistons, a title contender. Number 5 is the Oklahoma City Thunder, a title contender. Number 6 is the Cleveland Cavaliers, a title contender. Number 7 is Minnesota Timberwolves, a title contender. Number 8 is the New York Knicks, a title contender. You finally get to the Clippers. But 2 through 8 are title contenders. This is 30 games. This is 1,440 minutes of basketball. Of those teams that I mentioned, they've beaten OKC. They've beaten San Antonio. They beaten Boston. They also beat Houston, who's not in that list, but is not too far down it. They now have Coby White. So LaMelo Ball, when he's on the court, not just this stretch of games, but the entire season, they've been a dominant team. At 125 points per 100 possessions when LaMelo Ball is on the court, which is 98th percentile among any individual in the entire NBA. Beating teams by 10.4 points per 100 possessions when LaMelo Ball is on the court. They have an elite 57.7 effective field goal percentage when LaMelo Ball is on the court, despite LaMelo shooting 50.1% effective field goal percentage. This is across the entire season. This is 3 1,000 possessions of basketball. This is not small sample. You mentioned the three together, how many minutes they played together. When the starting lineup plays together, nearly 600 possessions now. And that is about when starting lineup stabilizes, about 600 possessions. It's plus 32 points per 100 possessions across 600 possessions of this starting lineup. The next closest to them that has over 500 possessions played is the Detroit Pistons starting lineup at plus 14.4. What? Plus 14.4 versus plus 32. They're the closest to the Hornets starting five. So this team was already elite when LaMelo plays. He just plays around an average of 60% of the games. So figuring out that other 40% was the entire problem. Now, Coby White, what we just saw him do against Boston and how he's played the last couple games, Coby White, if he is legit and is able to solve that 40% problem, if that 40% problem is solved, if everything you're saying is true, if they've knocked off all of these teams who are at the top of the list, if the top of the list going straight down from 2 to 8 are all title contenders, and they've solved their only problem, is this team an Eastern Conference contender and a title contender? That's where I'm putting you on the spot, Geoff.
I feel very put on the spot. And here's the thing. We've never, I'm not going to say unprecedented again. I'm not going to make Charlotte Hornets fans hear that word anymore. I'm racking my brain for playing teams that like made runs. Obviously, the 8 seed Heat made the finals in 2023. The Lakers in that same year were the 7 seed, lost to the Nuggets in the Western Conference Finals. They got swept, but I mean, I think by the time that LeBron James and Anthony Davis playing at the level that they did in 2023, people considered them a title contender when they made the conference finals. Aside from those couple teams, I'm blanking on 7, 8 seed teams that have been like significant threats, viewed as significant threats. And I think that's just the nature of it, is even though there were teams that were respected, the Warriors, again, the Lakers, LeBron, it's just hard to not have home court advantage in so many consecutive series and win repeatedly. There's one thing the Hornets have that kind of counters that. They're an elite road team. They're so good on the road. And you said something in the video essay, at the end of the video essay about LaMelo. I believe your exact line was like, the only question is health, because when he plays, we know what he does, and it's elite impact. When this Hornets team is healthy, I do feel like we know what they are. And title contender is just such weird framing because, again, it's so hard to win when you don't have home court advantage, multiple series to just project that. So do I think that they are a grade A title contender today? I just think that's too hard. You got to win a play-in game. Maybe you got to win at least one play-in game. If you're the 8 seed, you can go 1-1. But like, let's say Miami and Atlanta and Orlando keep winning to the point where Charlotte's just stuck at 9. Well, okay, they've got to win 2. So you got to win 2 do-or-die games. And then as the 8 seed, you got to beat Detroit. And then you got to beat one of Toronto and Cleveland. And then you got to beat one of Boston or New York, probably, all without home court advantage. This is just so hard. It's not even saying anything about Charlotte themselves not being a title contender. It's just where they're at just makes it so difficult. So I'm going to give myself a little bit of a cop-out here, because I think that Charlotte in a playoff series can play with just about anybody. And if the season had started from the beginning and we were able to play this whole thing out, guaranteeing health, I would right now be calling them a title contender. I just think that because of the injuries to start the season, because of the really dismal record to start the season, it's just such a big hole. It's really, really hard to come back from. I hope I'm proven wrong. They're so fun to watch, but title contender is just a lot. And I apologize, Charlotte fans. You can you can roast me. You can roast me in the comments. I'm okay with that.
I don't think Charlotte Hornets fans are going to take offense to you saying that they're not quite a title contender. I broached the subject, which this is not a conversation being had elsewhere. You think that anywhere else they're talking about the Charlotte Hornets as title? Maybe some Hornets podcast potentially, but anywhere else nationally, I highly doubt it. But I broached the subject in large part because the data that we have, if we want to just be sort of agnostic and we're just like robots who just look at data, it suggests that there's no reason why they wouldn't be, because I sort of anticipated you talking about them having to go and deal with so many road series, and you already kind of gave the response I would have given, but I'm going to just put a little bit of data to it. Since January 1st, they're 14-3 on the road. I mentioned their plus minus of being or their net rating being plus 12.2. Their road net rating is plus 17.2. They score 128 points per 100 possessions on the road. Their effective field goal percentage shoots up to 60.2% on the road. So they have the number one offense by far. 128 points per 100 possessions would be the best offense in the NBA history, and probably wouldn't change for the next 5 to 10 years potentially before that's usurped. If obviously they wouldn't be able to keep that up for a whole season. But they have the number one offense by far. The next closest to them is 5 points behind. And they also have the seventh offense. And I'm just talking about specifically on the road. The number 2 offensive rebounding team and the number 1 defensive rebounding team just on the road. So since January 1st, they have been one of the most dominant road teams that we've ever seen across a 2-month sample. Like, this is utter domination on the road, like to the likes that we haven't seen in a really, really long time, aside from the elite teams in the history of the NBA, teams like, the Warriors, who, have insane records where they're winning 70 games. Like this is not stuff that we see. And so, like, if we're talking about the issue being like, man, they got to go through so many series where they on the road, it really doesn't matter that like for the Hornets team, if this is who they are, if we're claiming this is who they are, it actually is irrelevant. It actually plays to their hands because they're just so dominant in these situations. So to me, do I think that they're a title contender? I think that they're an Eastern Conference contender. And I genuinely believe that. I think that, yes, the seeding is going to determine everything. And I know this feels crazy. If you're a Hornets fan, it doesn't feel crazy. If you're not a Hornets fan, if you're a fan of 29 other teams, it sounds crazy. But here's the thing. All of the data that we gave, these are huge samples. These are not tiny samples. These are not hot streaks. These are just like substantive things that we know about this team. And the seeding, I think, is going to be the most important thing. There's one glaring issue with the Hornets, and I want to hear your thoughts on it. There's one glaring issue. There's only one, because they take the second most threes, frequency of threes in the league, and they make them at the highest percentage. But I don't think that's unsustainable. I think they have elite 3-point shooters, and so it would make sense. They have guys who shoot from range, and they have 3 of the best shooters in the league. All 3 of these guys, Brandon Miller, Kon Knueppel, and LaMelo Ball, shoot nearly 90% free throws. Like this is who they are in terms of shooting talent, in terms of true shooting ability. This is who they are. Here's the problem. Against the Hornets from January 1st, teams are shooting 32% from 3. This is the worst percentage in the NBA across that time frame. And to me, that part is likely unsustainable. They are also shooting, not only are they shooting 32% against the Hornets, from the corners, teams are shooting 31.8% against the Hornets from 3. That is not something that I think is sustainable. That is not something that I think is representative of the Hornets defense. I don't think the Hornets defense is so elite at closing out or preventing teams from making 3-pointers that they're going to shoot that lower percentage. That's an insanely low percentage. And I don't think that that's sustainable. So I think their defense is not as good as it has been. I think their offense is as good as it has been. And so I think if they get a particular matchup, I think they match up particularly poorly with the Detroit Pistons. And so if they end up with the Pistons, if they end up in the 8 playing the 1, I think that really hurts their chances. But I think if they end up anywhere else, I absolutely give them a shot at Eastern Conference contention.
Yeah, I mean, when you were saying their one weakness, I was actually curious where you were going with that, because if this was 2 weeks ago or whatever, we obviously would have talked about the non-LaMelo minutes. And that's crazy. Like, that's remains crazy to me that a team that good, like Kon's been amazing, Miller's been amazing. How many Hornets fans know that on the season, when Kon and Miller play without LaMelo, they're losing those minutes by 12 points per 100 possessions. Like, it's as good as those guys are, and they're amazing. And again, they're perfectly synergistic with LaMelo. LaMelo still drives the ship, and now they have Coby White, and all of a sudden, the non-LaMelo minutes are starting to look a lot better. That's huge for them. It's huge for their ceiling to, as we've covered in countless ways, if you crush the minutes when LaMelo plays, if you can just figure out how to tread water in the minutes he doesn't play, it's clearly a title team. It's clearly, we have seasons worth of data that when LaMelo Ball plays basketball, your team's going to be very good, no matter how he shoots. And that's another area, by the way, when we're talking about a playoff ceiling, offenses all go down. They all regress. LaMelo already has the hardest shot quality in the league, and as has been covered ad nauseum, is not an efficient individual player. His efficiency is not going to go anywhere. Like, okay, maybe he'll run into some negative variance and have some tour date shooting nights, but like in a vacuum, if you're projecting forward, you expect his shooting numbers to stay around the same. His offensive impact is going to be elite because he draws so much attention. He's such a special passer. I think LaMelo is like primed and ready to play in the playoffs, even if some of the final box scores don't look so pretty. If you're out there and this is going to be your first time seeing him, that's just what's going to happen when LaMelo Ball plays basketball. He takes a lot of tough shots, and that's a part of the package. It's baked in. The defense thing is tough because intuitively you look at their roster. Miles Bridges has not been a great defender this year. You look for him to be like that sort of glue guy, take on the challenge of guarding the opposing team's best player if it's a bigger wing. Brandon Miller, he has some offensive responsibilities when LaMelo's not on the court. You want to run the offense through him. The Hornets are very, very incentivized to see what Miller can do with the ball in his hands, see how high he can fly there. So yes, you want him to sort of take that Paul George path of being an elite two-way player, but it might be a lot to ask of him to expect him to carry the burden when LaMelo's not out there, or co-carry it with Coby White, and then also turn around and guard the other team's best player. That's tough. And so I agree with you that the defense as it is right now, I mean, I think they're, God, what are they since this? They're fifth in defense since January 3rd when this streak really started. I don't know how authentic that is, but the thing is to sort of play devil's advocate with myself and with what you're saying, if the offense is as good as we believe, the requisite level of defense doesn't have to be that high. Yes, when they're a top 5 defense, when the numbers say they're a top 5 defense, this is what you're going to get. You're going to get the best team in the league because their offense, when they're healthy, is just almost unstoppable. But to be a true contender in a vacuum, you don't have to have the best offense and a top 5 defense. That's not best team in the league. That's one of the best teams of a generation. Like, you just don't see that often. For the Hornets to be a legitimate contender, they really only need like a league average defense. And I think they can pull that off. I think that people didn't expect it coming into the season. That's probably why he wasn't like a lock top 2 pick. Kon Knueppel has tread water on that end. He's been passable. He's smart. He's high IQ. He's in the right places. Obviously, there are some certain limitations, but for the most part, he, I think, has exceeded expectations defensively. I hope we have enough time to talk about, just do a segment on him offensively, because speaking of unprecedented, what the hell is he doing? Like, you texted me the other day, is this the greatest rookie season of all time? Like, I don't even know. This might be one of the greatest rookie seasons we've ever seen from an impact
offensively in particular, but yeah.
I think that LaMelo has put together some of his best defensive stretches when he's locked in during the stretches. He's playing some of the best defense of his career. I think Miller's a good defender. I think Moussa Diabate tries really hard. He's like, he so much of what they do well is based around his skill set. They rely on him to protect the rim. He's their offensive rebounding guy. He's low-key super important to this team. And all of this is to say, do I think they're a top 5 defense? No, I think shooting variance has played a part in that. I totally agree with you there. But if LaMelo can keep this up, and I believe he can, I believe we have more than enough evidence to prove that he can. If LaMelo can keep this up and they can be the elite offense that we know they can be, that they've proven they can be, I think the Hornets can play the requisite level of defense to make it tough for any team.
Yeah, and that's a strong case. And so I think we're on the same page as far as, yeah, their defense is going to come back down to earth a little bit due to variance. But the idea is that it's been so insane that even if it comes back down to earth, they'll still be like able to be a top team if the offense is legit. The other thing I want to say, just to add to my own argument here, is that people talk about when the playoffs start, oh, well, this is a transition merchant team, and this pace is going to slow down. They're going to be a fly up and down the court. Actually, I got some news for these folks. This is a slow, deliberate team in the Charlotte Hornets. Since January 1st, they are 27th in pace in the league, and that may shock some people. They are a primarily half-court team. They are just insanely efficient in the half court. And at least effective because they get offensive rebounds and get putbacks as well. But since January 1st, they have been, like I said, second in frequency of threes with 46% of their shots coming from three and first in percentage. And I just believe in that and how effective their half court offense is. They're generating all of this in the half court. LaMelo is the best plus minus guy in terms of offensive on off for a half court in the entire league, 100th percentile. So I think this is a team that is actually built really well to deal with a playoff environment when the game slows down. So that's another aspect.
And just to add to that, like, this is a nightmare matchup if you're a big favorite, or excuse me, you're supposed to be a big favorite from a seeding standpoint. So like, Akshay and I have a decent amount of experience playing basketball at a good level. And Akshay, I would bet, is a decent amount better than me. And I think he would bet that too, or he would fight me over it. But as he and him on the side have talked about our games, one thing I might be better than him at is shooting the basketball. And if some great basketball player wanted to play either of us one-on-one, he might not want to see the person who could just get hot from three and, it doesn't matter the other stuff they can do. That is like the variance of 3-point shooting as a favorite is the scariest thing in modern NBA, because that is the hardest thing to control. This Hornets team has a way of controlling 3-point variance because they have all the best shooters. Some of these stats we're seeing actually are unbelievable. Like, LaMelo, Kon, and Miller are the top three and 3-pointers made for like the last 2 months. You're not supposed to have the top 3 and 3-pointers made all on one team. That's just ridiculous. So if you're the 2 seed Celtics, who again just got destroyed by this Hornets team, that's scary. And you're like, oh man, we're the 2 seed. We won 50 games. They're probably going to win 55 games this season. The Celtics season has been amazing. And your reward is the best offense in the NBA and a team that can make 25 threes on any given night. That is a nightmare, absolute nightmare. That is when variance is just a son of a bitch, and you just find yourself game 6 in Charlotte, look, win or go home. And like that is just a terrifying proposition for any team that gets a high seed, just not at all the type of team you want to play in the first round of the playoffs.
It's a perfect point, a critical point. And even if they do lose in the first round to a better team or to a higher seeded team, that team is going to be very, very scared once they see who they are playing in the first round, regardless of who they are. We have a little bit of time to talk about one more topic. And unfortunately, I'm going to move in a direction that's not about Kon Knueppel, because that would be a really fun thing to talk about. But the thing I want to talk about and get your reaction to specifically, we haven't talked about this off air, is that I want to talk about the Hornets' future. Because this is like a fever pitch of a season, and this is incredible. But let's say they lose in the first round, they get a bad matchup, they get the Pistons, they lose in 5 or 6 games, something like that. I am thinking contingent on health, and I can't stress this enough. Health is the determining factor of the future of this team. That is number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 in determining where this team is going to go moving forward. But I think contingent on health, this team is one of the top 5 teams in the NBA in terms of being set up for the future, for the extended future. And I say that for a few reasons. One, they have every single one of their first round picks until 2032. They have not traded any picks. To be able to assemble the talent that they have at the age that they have while still having all their picks is exceptionally rare. That is a situation that we only see with teams who have tanked for a while, like the Oklahoma City Thunder have been in that situation, but it is a very rare situation. They could have 3 additional first round picks on top of all of their own picks through 2032. They have Kon Knueppel on a rookie deal for 3 more seasons. He is 20 years old, having one of the best impact offensive seasons in the entire history of the NBA. They have LaMelo locked up for 3 more seasons on an incredible value deal. He is only at 25% of the cap or less for the entirety of his contract for the next 3 seasons. He's only 24 years old. Most guards don't reach their potential, their peak prime, until 26, 27 years old. He's not 25 yet, folks. Brandon Miller's going to get an extension soon. They'll have him locked up. They have upside guys in Tidjane Salaam, who is shooting 47% on wide open threes this season. And if he becomes a high level 3-and-D player that he's presenting as some level of an archetype for, he fits flawlessly with this big 3. He is 20 years old. Sion James, second round pick, back end rotation player. That you have with some upside of his defense, and it continues to improve and his shooting continues to improve. Kalkbrenner, I think, will be probably more like an elite 3rd big option, and they may either get a starting big over a Moussa Diabate or a backup to Moussa if Moussa continues to improve. There are so many directions they can go with the youth of their talent, the level of their talent, the synergy of their talent, the draft pick stockpile that they have, and the flexibility that they have moving forward. Is this not a top 5 team in terms of the next 5 to 7 years of what they can be?
Yeah, it's another really good question. You just keep teeing them up for me, and you're just really forcing me to rattle my brain. I mean, I think that there are a couple teams that we have to just put in their own tier. Like, I think I would just put OKC and San Antonio alone in the top tier, just because obviously OKC, what they're doing is obvious, but then San Antonio, some people people can debate whatever they want with San Antonio. Just having Wemby alone is just like, yeah, they're going to be fine for as long as Wemby's healthy and playing at this level, which is amazing. I don't think top 5 is out of the realm of reasonability. I think that's a totally reasonable perspective, because all the points you made are so good. And Miller and Kon Knueppel, I don't know how many people realize just how inexperienced of course, Kon Knueppel, everybody knows he's a rookie, but Brandon Miller, slightly older rookie out of Alabama, he hadn't played that many games coming into this season. He was super good last year in an injury-riddled season, but do people know that he's especially given who ended up being the quote-unquote replacement, he had an argument he and LaMelo both had arguments for being all-stars this season. Totally reasonable ones. Miller is already incredible, and he could just easily make the leap. And I just want to, I've said the word twice. I've said synergistic twice. This is so important to me, and it should be important to Hornets fans, because the lack of redundancy across their top 3 players means that one player making a leap, one player improving in a certain area or improving at a certain thing, will not step on the toes of another player. They can, in theory, all grow together. There's nothing stopping them. To me, that's what makes Oklahoma City so formidable. And I don't think it gets talked about nearly enough with them. We talk about the incredible depth. We talk about Sam Presti. Nobody talks about the fact that they have 3 all-NBA level players. They have an MVP and 2 all-NBA level players when they're at their healthy, when they're healthy and at their best, in Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams, who can be all-NBA level impact players next to an MVP. That's impossible. That doesn't occur. And that's why Oklahoma City is so scary, because one player thriving doesn't infringe on another player's ability to thrive. And that's what we're seeing in Charlotte more than arguably any other Eastern Conference team. Me personally, I value that a ton. I think as the skill across the league increases and we get more and more talented NBA players, fit is only going to become more important. You can't just throw bad fitting good players together and expect it to work. That's not going to work anymore. You need guys who can be 100% of themselves at the same time. And the good thing is there are so many ways to impact a basketball game that isn't having your hands on the ball. You know, if you're a Hornets fan, you see it with Kon Knueppel. He's already one of the best movers off the ball in the entire game. The gravity he has, just his existence on the basketball court, the defender never leaves him. And that makes it easier for his teammates to score. He is helping his team score without even touching the ball. These ways of impacting a basketball game, they just go so far beyond what you do with the ball in your hands, or if you're guarding the ball defensively. There are so many areas you can help your team. And LaMelo, Kon Knueppel, Brandon Miller, Diabate, they help their team win, whether they have their hands on the ball or they don't. And when we're projecting forward and them growing together, again, me personally, that just has me so high on them.
I think that's beautifully said and summarized, and a great way to end the show. And as you can tell, we're a couple guys who are pretty high on the Charlotte Hornets, both this year, but really moving forward. Maybe you think I in particular sound insane. Would love to hear your comments. If that is the case, tell me I'm crazy. Tell me you think this makes sense. Tell me you think I made some pretty good arguments for why I and Geoff as well are so high on them. But would love to hear your thoughts. We reply to every single comment. And if you've made it this far and you're not subscribed, you really need to do that, because we drop a lot of, I think, very, very high value content when it comes to breaking down teams in this way, as well as video essays where we get to really deep dive on a single topic. And if you haven't checked out the LaMelo Ball video essay, I strongly suggest, especially if you are here at this point in the episode, you check that out. You will find it very interesting. And until next time, we appreciate you guys joining. Drop a comment. We will respond to every single one. For Geoff, I'm XJ, and this has been Hot Hand Theory.